What is the parts integration technique? So you might have heard about the powerful parts integration techniques on a podcast, on social media, as you were learning more about personal development work. And you might have heard how powerful it can be when you have two parts, you're having this internal tug of war, and you bring the parts together and you have that wholeness. And you might be wondering, what is the science behind a parts integration? What are parts in the first place? How do they work? And so we're going to be talking all about what is a parts integration technique so that you have the full scoop on how powerful it is and the science behind it. So to explain it at a high level, if you or anyone you know, or maybe one of your clients has been struggling with feeling stuck, not moving forward, or even having that little voice in your head that's chirping at you like a bully saying, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you won't succeed, you don't know how, you're a fraud. If you have any of those, it's very likely that you have an internal part that needs to be integrated into wholeness to allow you to move forward in alignment. So what we're going to do is dive into how you can actually do it, how it works, and some of the success stories that we've seen. And I have today with me the incredible Jess, who's a trainer on our team, who's trained hundreds of students in our methods, to chat about the power of this technique today.
Hello. Yes, I love talking about parts. I love talking about all our techniques, but I love talking about parts integration. And so I'm really excited. I always kind of think this is a really great way of explaining why someone would need parts integration. It's sort of like the language that we often hear ourselves say or our clients say, which is, well, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. Like by far, it's once I've made you aware of that language, you're going to start noticing it all of the time. People saying, well, part of me wants this, part of me wants that, from big things to small things. Like I actually said it the other day about what I wanted for dinner. I was like, part of me wants to have a salad, part of me really wants this. And I was like, well, there's literally a deeper part there. So it's super exciting to start to realize how we're all carrying them. And my first question for you, Reese, is what is the goal with parts integration? What is the why? Why do we want to bring these parts together for the client or ourselves?
Yeah. So a part, like many of the, areas of our subconscious mind, is formed in our childhood for the most part. So from ages 0 to 7, our subconscious mind is so powerful that it will set up parts, almost like mini personalities, to protect us or to support us in our life. So for example, let's say that someone's growing up and every time they reach out to their mother for love or support, their mother rejects them. Maybe their mom is just too busy or whatever it is. That person might actually set up a protective part that feels like a wall so that they don't have to feel the hurt or pain of rejection. And so this part can be supportive for this child growing up. But then what might happen is when this child reaches adult age, if they say, well, I want to get into a relationship, I want to connect with people, I want to be open with people. And every time they try to do it, that same wall of that same protective part comes and stops them from being who they truly want to be. Now, the part isn't a bad thing. The part has protected us, it's served us, it's helped us when we didn't have the wherewithal to do it on our own. And so what a parts integration technique does is it allows us to talk to this part, to thank the part, to honor the part for all that it's done, and to bring the part back into wholeness with us. Essentially saying, thank you, part, for all you've done to keep me safe. But now I can handle this, I can connect, I can get together with other people, and I'm an adult. So my growth isn't actually going to come from hiding or playing small. My growth is going to come from me evolving. And parts can look like so many different things. So one that's very common with our clients is, part of me wants to be successful and part of me wants to be a mom. And there's wholeness knows I can be successful and I can be a mom, but there might be a part within them that feels like, well, one part of me has to play small and hide and only be nurturing, whereas the other part wants to be like gregarious and outgoing and makes lots of money or whatever it is. And so by doing a parts integration, we allow the parts to talk to each other and see how that person can actually be restored to wholeness, be safe, and become their most expansive version of themselves by encapsulating all of those parts of their personality as they move forward in the world.
Yeah. And don't you think it's so powerful when you see that integration kind of happen? Like you see sensory acuity, which is how we describe it when we teach our coaches and students. But like, you literally see someone have a physical reaction to the shift that's happening inside, and it gives me chills, makes me want to cry every time,
Me
because
too.
I think when a lot of the time we talk about being stuck, and I think parts integration is one of the biggest, look, a lot keeps us stuck, but it's one of the biggest things that keeps us where we are, because
Yeah.
whilst our brain is focused on these two, or our body, our nervous system is focused on these two ideals that both feel right to some extent, but they're opposing, you're not going to move anywhere. And what happens a lot when we integrate the parts is the parts realize that they both want the same thing for you. And
Exactly.
when that happens, it's like, to watch it is beautiful, but to experience it, it is one that there can be a bit of resistance on as well. And that's where our other techniques come in really well, like EFT or regulation work or language work, to just help the client feel safe to integrate the parts too, because that's an element that sometimes we don't talk about, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like part of me wants to be healthy, but part of me wants the comfort food, or part of me wants to sell and make money, but part of me wants people to like me. And it's like, you can't have both. But at that moment, the subconscious mind doesn't see both. And that's where this technique is so powerful. And so many people who are watching this, they might have heard of parts before because of internal family systems. So internal family systems uses parts and names parts, which can be so powerful. But one of the things that I learned in my NLP training, my neuro linguistic programming training, that I brought into the certification is not only how to name the parts, but how to have that powerful conversation with the part so that that person can find wholeness and move forward in alignment. And, over the years, we've actually studied a lot of our techniques. And so we did a study with the parts integration technique. And what we found, we had 40 participants in this research study. 20 of them were the control, and 20 of them actually went through the parts integration technique. And what they did was they did the parts integration technique, and then they submitted to us weekly diary entries on their shifts. And what happened was 90% of the participants who did the parts integration technique that we teach at Yes Supply reported feeling internal congruency. So they didn't have that part of me wants this or part of me wants that. They felt aligned and they had that internal congruency, that wholeness that we're looking for. And 80% of the participants reported dissipated feelings of anger at a 2-month follow-up session. Because what can happen is when people have this part of me wants to be successful, part of me wants to start a business, and part of me wants to keep working at that old job. When you know what to do, but you're not doing it, it can create a lot of frustration and a lot of anger. And so when we do the parts integration, we help the person move forward in alignment. I believe that's why 80% of participants actually had dissipated feelings of anger at a 2-month follow-up session. And the control group, who named their parts but didn't actually do the integration, demonstrated significantly lower congruency. Okay, so it
Yeah.
shows, yes, naming the parts can help, but integrating the parts is what actually helps somebody have the emotional shift.
Yes, and when you integrate them and also have the tools to help the client regulate around their desires and being that version of themselves, like you see after doing a technique like this with the client, you see the outcome quite quickly, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you do this one on yourself quite a bit too. Like, you'll just be like, right, let me identify my parts and do it on myself. So I remember you told me that, and I went and did it as well on myself, and still sort of like had that really beautiful integration doing it.
Yeah, it just creates so much alignment, I feel. And like you were saying before, you can pick up on it. You have that self-awareness. You're talking to someone, you hear yourself say, part of me wants this, part of me wants that. Okay, let me make some time for myself to do a parts integration when I get home. And that's why I love the Yes, It's Yours app, because all of the techniques, bless you, all
Thank you.
are right there. You can just open up the app. And one of my favorite times to do the techniques is as I'm drifting off to sleep. And then the whole night, my brain and my subconscious can just integrate everything. Yeah, it's a
Yes, because I think one of the big reasons a lot of people are joining the app is because of self-sabotage, procrastination, or like not seeing the results of their manifestations. Like, we hear a lot about manifesting, but like we don't always hear these parts. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people inside the Yes It's Yours app. And I see it because we have that great community in there too. And I think parts integration is one of the best ways to deal with self-sabotage, because often you're self-sabotaging because of these opposing parts, or you're procrastinating because of these opposing parts, because when you resolve that conflict, the sabotaging behavior doesn't make sense anymore. It loses its grip, right?
I totally agree.
I'm so excited. So, if somebody's listening and they feel stuck, but they're not sure if they have parts, how might they be able to tell if this is a part? Like, let's say they feel stuck financially, they want more abundance, they want more money, but like they're stuck in their old patterns. How would they kind of be able to tell for themselves whether they have parts or a limiting belief, or maybe both? What could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I feel like a great way to name this is if you kind of feel it part of the time. It's like one day you wake up and you're taking action, you're doing all the things, and then the next day you're like, I can't do this. I'm going to fail. There was no point. It's going to work.
Yes.
It's like such a clear example that you don't have that congruency and you don't have the alignment. Another big thing too is practicing that self-awareness. So if you're having a conversation and you notice part of me wants this, part of me wants that, that is a great way to see if you have a part. Also, if you have a little nagging voice in your head, I feel like this is one of the biggest indicators. So if you have that little nagging voice in your head, and maybe it even sounds like someone you know, like a teacher or your mother-in-law or something like that, and a little voice saying, you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough, other people are already doing it, you can't. Usually that part, even though it sounds like a bully, is actually trying to protect you. Right? Because it thinks that if you just keep doing the things you've always done, you're going to survive. So it's trying to keep you in survival when really, when you overcome that, you have a much higher likelihood of thriving.
Yeah, it's so true. It's protecting you. And actually, it's something really powerful that happens when I work with our students. When you actually thank that part and you actually acknowledge that you've been angry at that part for quite a while, that part of you, but all of a sudden, when you realize it's been protecting you, it's quite emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It can be. Sometimes it's like, yeah, integrated by, but
Yeah,
sometimes there's an emotional element, right?
absolutely. Yeah, because that part has been there since you were young. And a lot of the time it's protecting you and nobody else was. So it plays an important part. And that's why sometimes it also can be sticky to release. Sometimes it can take 15, 20 minutes to release a part because that part is like, no, this person needs me. If I'm not here to protect you,
Yeah.
everything's going to fall apart. And that's why having that loving conversation with the part is so important to bring it back into wholeness.
Yeah, and then you can act from this place of alignment and congruency and use our other techniques to install new beliefs. Now that you are aligned and your parts and your conflict is resolved, you can move forward as that version of you who does create their yes life. And this is often the missing piece, right?
Totally. Absolutely.
So, one last question before we finish up. If somebody is in a session and a coach, for instance, is in a session and they're hearing their client say, part of me wants that, what does it look like to sort of run them through a parts integration in the moment?
Yeah. So if you hear that, you can let the client know. Like I don't agree with doing NLP on people. I like doing it with people. So you can let the client know. It sounds to me based on some of the things that I'm hearing that you might have a part and you would benefit from this part being integrated into the whole. Do you want to go ahead and do the parts integration technique together? And then we bring a lot of trauma sensitive learnings into our certification. So one of the next things that you want to do is you want to give your client context and choice. So guide the client through what the technique will look like or what might happen and what they might feel and experience as they go through the technique, and give them choice. Do you want to do this? So this is a big part of, especially if the person has already felt trauma, this is a big part of not creating more trauma, giving them context and choice. And if they're like, yes, this technique sounds amazing, I absolutely want to do it, then what we do is we help the client connect to their subconscious mind and actually bring up their idea of what the part is. So it's so interesting because for some people, the part might be a certain color or a certain shape. And for some people, the part might actually take on the image of someone that they know. So it might look like an aunt or uncle. It might look like Mickey Mouse. It might look like Santa Claus, right? So it's interesting because this is the metaphor that the subconscious mind has created for this part. And so we can invite the person to bring the part out on both hands. And we're having a conversation, almost like a negotiation, to find out what is the part's purpose and their intention in keeping the human essentially in the same patterns and, in the same ways of being. And so oftentimes it's because that part wants to protect the person or keep the person safe. And through this negotiation and through the part seeing the other side of things, when the person gets to be their creative, their expansive, their successful self, a lot of the time we're able to see that the safest thing for this person is to be who they want to be, to move into abundance, to move into flow, to move into creativity, to move into deeper ways of love, whether it's a relationship or friendships or whatever it is. And so through this conversation, the subconscious mind takes over. And as the parts starts to agree, as the parts start to agree with each other, the hands actually start moving forward on their own. And when the hands start to touch, that's how we know that the parts are ready to integrate, and the person will bring their hands up to their chest and usually have their eyes closed and take a few moments. And sometimes there's tears, and that's totally okay because you're essentially taking an emotion that's been locked inside and finally letting it escape and release. And I would much rather that emotion be outside of the person than stuck inside of the person, suppressed inside the person. So usually that person has an emotional release and they're able to see why they have been doing things, why they may feel like they've been self-sabotaging, because that part of them actually felt like they were safer. And now they know I can be my whole self and still be safe. I can express myself. I can create abundance. I can go after my dreams and still be protected. And it's a beautiful moment. And usually that person has a lot of learnings that they can integrate going forward into the rest of their life.
Absolutely. What's a big shift you've seen from integrating conflicting parts in your life?
Alignment, usually. Yeah. Alignment. And also, I used to have a lot of self-sabotaging thoughts. Like literally, my whole brain was like a talk show with like 6 guests
Yes.
talking about the reasons why I can't do anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what it did, what doing parts integration did, is all of those parts integrated. And now I could just think. I don't have all of those opposing thoughts. It's like peace in my mind.
I bet a lot of people were like, wait, what? Can
Yeah,
I have some of
exactly. I
that?
know. I didn't know it was possible to release that little voice, running on a treadmill all day long until I did parts integration.
I love that. And how can people experience parts integration for themselves?
Yeah, good question. We have the parts integration exercise inside the Yes It's Yours app. I believe it's in the Your Exoneration of Self
Yes,
module.
I think it is too.
And so I definitely encourage anyone, don't just sign up for the app and hop right into parts integration. I would encourage you to go through the process that I set up for you in the app, because that will help make any of the techniques that much more meaningful for you, but it is
Yes.
available in the app. And then if somebody wants to experience this on themselves as well, we offer single sessions on our website. So you can go to yesapply.co/single session shift and sign up for an hour-long session with one of our coaches and experience a parts integration for yourself. And then, of course, if you're watching this and you're like, I need this, I need this technique done on me. I want to learn how to use this technique with my loved ones, with the people I care about, and with my clients, then I encourage you to apply for the Yes Apply Method coaching certification, because you'll learn all of the science, all the ins and outs, and how to use it on yourself and on others inside the certification.
Amazing. And we're so excited to see you in whichever one is the right path for you. But I know for sure that when you integrate your parts, you're going to feel that peace that Reese was talking about. You're going to stop self-sabotaging. You're going to get into alignment, and you're going to create your yes life.
Yeah. How do you use
Yay.
parts?
Loads too. Actually, as funny as you were talking, I had to bring my brain back to the task at hand because I started to realize, oh, I think I have a part that I'm going to go home and work on tonight. When I first got pregnant, I had the motherhood thing was a big part for me. Like this, that there was this vision of what I had to be or should be. So I've used it with that. And more recently, I've used it on part of me wants to find a partner, part of me wants to stay on my own. Like
Right.
I constantly was flip-flopping
That's a
between this
big
and
one.
yeah, like, because I've had a divorce and now I'm a single mom and I was flip-flopping. And so I integrated my parts on that recently and I feel so at peace. I don't even think about it anymore. I
That's
don't
good.
even think about it. I think my brain's just like in trust and I don't need anything. And if something's meant to land in my life, it will. But I was thinking about it a lot and it was driving my behavior and bringing up thoughts. And now that piece is there.
I love that. Yeah, I have seen that with so many clients. And a lot of the time, what comes up is there's part of them that wants to get in the relationship, of course. And then there's part of them that doesn't. And it feels like, well, if I get in a relationship, now I have to give up my freedom. I have to give
Yes.
up my purpose or my career or whatever that is.
Yes.
And so through doing the integration, it helps them release that internal tug of war that's yeah, you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly running through it in your head.
And it also helped me uncover, and I think this is a great thing with a lot of our techniques, it helps you uncover other things because as I was doing that parts integration, I was journaling and I realized I had a limiting belief that if I get in another relationship, my life will be stressful.
Right. Yes. And who wants to create more stress in their life?
Yeah, so it's like, so then I realized, oh, I have this belief that relationships equals stress. So now I get to
Right.
release that belief. And now I'm just kind of like, no, relationships are beautiful when they're the right one. And, when that right one arrives, I will feel safe to enter it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is why it's so important to do the inner work because I think in life in general, we're always chasing external, whether it's what does that person think of me or how many likes or whatever. But the power comes when you build that internal relationship with yourself. You take the time to journal or do your parts
Yes.
integration. And then whatever happens in the external world feels more aligned.
Yeah. And I actually do it in the manuals we printed off in Miami. I actually did it we printed our Yes, It's Yours, didn't
Workbooks.
we?
Yeah.
Workbooks. And I find that really helpful to go through the process inside Yes, It's Yours. So even though I've been coaching on these techniques and teaching our students for years now, I love just putting on the app because it just makes it easy for me to go through them for myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, well, this was so fun as always. And we are here if you want to talk about parts integration or any of our other techniques or offerings.
Yes, yes. If you're watching this, you have any questions, leave us any questions below in the comments. And if you want to join our coaching certification, then I'll leave a link there as well where you can go ahead and apply to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.